Is our meditation giving its effect? Meditation is like a medicine. While doctors' pills are medicine for body, meditation is medicine for mind. How do we confirm if the doctor's medicines are working? If by taking those medicines our disease starts curing, then we believe the medicine is working. Similarly, we meditate for a particular purpose, and if we are convinced that the purpose is being served, then we know that the meditation is giving its right effects. Like people's bodies suffer from diseases such as blisters, ulcers, cancer, etc., people's minds suffer from diseases such as anger, hatred, jealousy, greed, etc. And these diseases are caused by a deadly virus called ego. Meditation is the most commonly used medicine to cure this virus. Ultimately, we all want to live a happy and peaceful life. But as long as we have ego, we cannot be happy and peaceful. So people meditate to overcome their ego. A meditator can find out if his meditation is working and bringing positive effect if he succeeds in living a happy and peaceful life. With every 6 months of practice, a meditator should feel more happy and peaceful than before. If that doesn't happen, then his meditation is not bringing positive effect, and he should intensify his practice. There are 7 billion people, and all have desires. Desires that we feel when fulfilled will give us happiness. That makes billions of people and billions of desires. However, Vedanta has beautifully summarized those billions of desires into just 4 words: Sukhsam Prapti, Dukhsam Vritti. Sukhsam Prapti means acquiring joy, and Dukhsam Vritti means getting rid of sorrow. Every individual wants continuous flow of joy into his or her life, and getting rid of every sorrow that he or she has in life. Continuous Sukhsam Prapti and Dukhsam Vritti is the perfect formula to an unhindered happy life.
Vedanta has beautifully summarized billions of desires into just 4 words: Sukham Prapti, Dukham Nivritti. Sukham Prapti means acquiring joy, and Dukham Nivritti means getting rid of sorrow.
Once we accept that formula to be correct, the next question arises: how can we ensure continuous Sukhsam Prapti and Dukhsam Vritti in our lives? People have tried thousands of ways to achieve that, most of which are religious practices, frequent visits to places of worship, participating in vespers and choirs, reading holy books and scriptures, etc. Such practices definitely help people, but that alone can't provide us with continuous Sukhsam Prapti, Dukhsam Vritti. The only answer to an unimpeded happy life is living spiritually, i.e. living like a married monk, living a balanced life. Living spiritually means living a life of righteousness. The Sanskrit word for righteousness is dharma. As against that, unrighteousness is adharma. Why bad things happen to good people? People often think, why bad things happen to good people? The fact is, we all do many wrong things, but we are not aware of that, and most importantly, we don't accept that we are wrong in many cases. We all have a portion of past and present lives, doings that fructify in this life. That doings, karma, is called prarabdha. Unless we have enjoyed, suffered, and exhausted our prarabdha, we would continue to experience bad happenings even if we have stopped all wrong doings. We need to have patience to exhaust our prarabdha.
Bad things happen to good people because of 2 reasons. Firstly, they haven't exhausted their prarabdha yet. And secondly, they continue doing wrong things, karma, but they are not aware of that.
Good and bad are relative terms. What is good for one can be bad for another. Also, what is good for a person today can be bad for the same person in future. However, right and wrong are not relative terms. right is right for everybody, and similarly, wrong is universally wrong. Right and wrong, what is dharma and what is adharma, was decided before humans were created. God appeared as avatars many times to help people with the understanding of right and wrong. Still, very few people get the point and experience unrestrained happiness throughout the life and complete the individual soul's journey, never to come back to the physical world, but go back to the astral and then causal worlds forever. Right and wrong cannot be debated or decided by humans. They are pre-decided by law of karma. Human minds are too conditioned or biased for deciding right or wrong. For instance, we might consider a soldier killing people in war as right, whereas a contract killer killing somebody as wrong. However, if we compare the two, we would see too many similarities. Both the soldier and the contract killer are doing the act of killing humans, both are doing for money, both are executing the orders of their seniors or employers. At the most, we might justify saying that the soldier is protecting his country from enemy. But that's not a justification from karma's point of view. Unlike the law of the land, which is specific only to that land, the law of karma is an universal law, and thus has no boundaries of nations, religions, castes, colors, etc. Another example, does eating eggs amount to killing? Egg contains potential life. In that sense, eating egg would amount to killing. However, an egg before it's hatched doesn't contain any life, and hence eating it doesn't amount to killing. On the contrary, eating egg might prevent a future killing of chicken, which would be produced out of the egg if not eaten before it's hatched. So, how can one decide whether eating egg is right or wrong? As humans, we are not expected to debate or argue on what is right or wrong. If we are serious about living this life seriously and attaining liberation, then we should blindly go by the rights and wrongs as laid down by the law of karma. Then the most important question arises: how would we know what's right or wrong as per the law of karma? That's true. We cannot just rely on the Holy Scriptures because, though they were originally the words of God, they are now manipulated by humans over the centuries. We cannot blindly take the word of gurus because in this Kali Yuga, Dark Age, human minds are not fully open to accept somebody's words, be it their own gurus. The best way to find out right and wrong is by way of meditation and other spiritual practices. In prayers we speak to God, while in meditation God speaks to us.
The best way to find out right and wrong is by way of meditation and other spiritual practices. In prayers we speak to God, while in meditation God speaks to us.
Nothing can be as convincing and satisfying as acquiring the knowledge directly from God. When there are ripples in pond water, we cannot see the bottom of the pond. But when the water is calm, everything looks crystal clear in the pond up to the very bottom. Similarly, when the mind is calm in meditation, the mind gets all answers from God. Meditate, find out what's right and what's wrong. Let all your actions be right and only right. Nothing else will be needed for you to experience a life of a Jivanmukta, living liberated, and total liberation at the end of this very life. Life will try to teach you several things, and many a time the teaching could be contradictory too. Who should you listen to? Just listen to your bliss. There is a guiding power within all of us. Sometimes that power might seem to mislead us, but know that that too is for our good. That power will show us the right path. That's our bliss. Listen to your bliss. Some people, following their spiritual paths, suddenly decide to leave home and family and take up an austere life. People debate if that's a right action. Can a person understand God by ditching human beings? Some people just give up alcohol, or smoking, or eating meat, etc. They do not do that under any pressure or belief, nor do they give any reason for doing so. If you ask them why they do that, they do that by listening to their bliss. When you sit in solitude or in meditation, you can listen to your rapture. When you do anything listening to your rapture, never justify your action. Kundalini. Kundalini refers to the mystical power that all human beings have. In the spiritual world, we talk of mystical powers that people have experienced. The first one, which most of us have experienced, is the power of prayers. In logical world, a person fighting for life in an operation theater can be saved only if doctors, medicines, and advanced technology can save that person. But, with great respect for all those technologies, people pray to God with all their faith for such a person, and miracles do happen when doctors and advanced technologies lose their last hope. What works behind the prayers? Why sometimes prayers work, and other times they don't? Some schools of thoughts explain this by way of Kundalini. The mystical power that every human being has right over is called as Kundalini Shakti, power or energy, and symbolized as a serpent coiled 3.5 times, and lying dormant at the base of our spinal cord. This serpent can either be aroused by way of intense meditation, or it rises on its own based on extraordinary thoughts and actions of individuals. When it rises, even a little, miracles happen. Great miracles happen as the Kundalini rises to each of the chakras, energy centers. Coming back to the power of prayers, when a person prays to the Supreme Divine with all his or her faith, it slightly arouses his Kundalini. That little rising may be still far below the second chakra, Swadhisthana. However, even that little rising of Kundalini gives such a power to the person that his wish, that caused the Kundalini to rise, is fulfilled. No logic of the world can stop the wish of a person with aroused Kundalini from unfulfilling. If prayer is not powerful, Kundalini wouldn't rise at all. Interesting fact is that this functionality of Kundalini doesn't distinguish between noble and evil wishes. The wish of a person with aroused Kundalini will be fulfilled, whether that causes good or bad to anybody. However, the law of karma would take care of the rest. Karma done with aroused Kundalini will also fructify when time comes, and that person will have to enjoy or suffer the karma. The law of Kundalini will work its way, and the law of karma, its way. Arousing Kundalini, as explained in Tantra science, also works for black magic, sorcery, witchcraft, etc. People have used this power to do extreme, noble as well as extreme, evil to mankind. A person would do superhuman tasks as Kundalini rises. He can talk in several languages, he can read left and right pages of the book simultaneously, he can recite hundreds of page book after one reading, he can levitate, rise above the ground while sitting on meditation, negating law of gravitation, or he can even bring life back to a dead body. Virgin birth is also possible when Kundalini rises to the heart chakra, Anahata. Kundalini can rise for several reasons, and a person may not even know when his or her Kundalini is at what level or chakra. Mother Mary's Kundalini might have risen to her heart chakra due to her immense compassion for everyone, which might have resulted in the birth of Christ. Queen Kunti's, of Mahabharata, Kundalini might have risen by praying to the sun god, which resulted in the birth of her first son, Karna. Scriptures are full of stories of supernatural births, and Tantra science explains the power of Kundalini behind that. A little rising of Kundalini results into prayers being answered. More of Kundalini's rising can cause virgin births, so one can imagine the power a person can experience when the Kundalini reaches the top, crown of the head, Sahasrara.
When Kundalini of a person reaches the crown of the head, Sahasrara, the person experiences a state of total bliss for such time when the Kundalini stays at Sahasrara. Every mystical and religious system of the world has its own way of describing this experience. Some have called it nirvana, others samadhi, kaivalya, self-realization, enlightenment, communion, state of heaven, and so on. Tantra philosophy calls it Sahasrara, and Patanjali's Raja Yoga calls it Samadhi. When Kundalini reaches Sahasrara, the person's body and mind become one with consciousness. The person can sit on meditation for hours and days without food or water. The body is matter, and as per medical science, the body can live without water, food, etc. only for certain hours or days, but this logic doesn't work once Kundalini reaches Sahasrara. It's up to a person to believe such things, but Upanishads talk of stories where sages sat in Nirvikalpa Samadhi for hundreds of years. During this Samadhi, the mystic power protects the body from destruction by fire, water, animals, and everything. Leave aside stories from Upanishads and come to 19th century avatar Sri Ramakrishna. One of his gurus, Guru Thothapuri, initiated him and taught him Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Kundalini piercing through crown of head. In his first sitting, the great avatar was finding it uncomfortable and told his guru that he can't do it. On that, his guru got annoyed and picked up a piece of broken glass and pierced it on Sri Ramakrishna's Nasikagra, point between the two eyebrows, and shouted, "What do you mean by saying you can't do? Now concentrate at this point of pain, and don't get up until you attain Nirvikalpa Samadhi." Great avatar, as he was, sat there for 3 days like a stone. Such amazing thing happens when the Kundalini of a person reaches the crown of his head.
Meditating on heart B/S crown of head chakra.
Why would a meditator like to stay at Anahata, heart, and not at Sahasrara, crown of head? Answering that, using movie as a metaphor to explain this concept, Anahata is like sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying the movie, while Sahasrara is understanding how the movie is made. Then obviously being at Anahata is nice, easy, and enjoyable.
Tree sprouts from seed, and seed comes from tree. And it's the same with egg and chicken. Most people still cannot comprehend how life began on earth. What is infinity? How can there be something that has no beginning or end? Are rebirth and karma true? How can the positions of stars decide our destiny? And there are thousands of such questions. One can get convincing answers to those questions only when they arouse their Kundalini to Sahasrara. But at Sahasrara it is very painful. For many it is enjoyable eating hamburgers and hot dogs, but what a pain it is to see the entire process of making them, right from the stage when live animals are butchered mercilessly. Similarly, many people, though they can reach or stay at Sahasrara, prefer not to do so, rather stay at Anahata and enjoy bhakti of the highest spirit. Samadhi, non-duality, and trance states. How do Nirvikalpa Samadhi and Nirvikalpa Sahaja Samadhi pertain to non-duality or trance states? Meaning of the Sanskrit word Vikalpa is doubt. However, it is also used for division. Nir means no. Thus, Nirvikalpa means no division, or in other words, non-duality. Samadhi is trance state. However, there are mainly two types of samadhis, nirvikalpa and asavikalpa. In savikalpa samadhi, a person is aware of his surroundings, his body and mind is vulnerable to the environment. Whereas in nirvikalpa samadhi, he is totally immune to all creations. People can stay in nirvikalpa samadhi for hours, days, and longer. Vedanta says that the essence of everything is same. The light that is reflected in the Creator is the same light that's reflected in all his creation. The Creator, creation, and the process of creation is actually one and the same. It is easy to read and understand this concept of Advaita, non-dualism, but to actually experience it one has to enter the nirvikalpa samadhi. Mantras. A mantra is a word or sound repeated to aid concentration in meditation. Om Mani Padme Om. Meaning, independence on the practice of a path which is an indivisible union of method and wisdom, you can transform your impure body, speech, and mind into the pure exalted body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Chanting the phrase Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is the essential reality of life, and the fundamental component of the practice of Buddhism. Chanting this phrase allows each individual to tap his or an enlightened nature directly, thus bypassing past causes and limitations. Although the deepest meaning of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is only revealed through the practice chanting it, there is a literal definition for each word. Nam, devotion, is like the concept of non-duality, the essence of all is the same. Myoho, mystic law, is like the concept of Satchitananda, that is, truth consciousness bliss. Renge, lotus flower, is like the concept of karma, the cause and theory. Kyo, teaching, is like the concept of sound or vibration. Say, Om. How powerful are mantras and vows? And the simplest answer is, mantras and vows are nothing if we take them by letters, whereas they would work miracles if we take them in spirit. Any mantra or vow is just like a ticket of travel, and not the journey. A spiritual aspirant has to take this ticket in his hand, and actually walk the path to complete his journey. It doesn't matter how many spiritual vows a person has taken, as long as he is not aware of the self-awareness or self-realization, that the consciousness that is God is the same consciousness he is manifest of, he is still in dark. As soon as he knows the self, he would know to see the self in all sentient and insentient beings. Anyway, mantras and vows are for beginners on spiritual journey. After crossing certain milestones, an aspirant can shun such mantras and vows. When a small child is hurt, it cries of pain. If we show a toy, it suddenly stops crying. Does the toy make the child's pain vanish? How does the child stop crying at the sight of the toy? The toy does nothing to the pain directly. It just distracts the child from its pain. Similarly, mantras and vows cannot make us experience self-realization, it merely distracts us from the worldliness. When an aspirant learns to keep himself distracted from the worldliness, he doesn't need mantras and vows anymore. Story: Faith in Mantra. A man was standing on a river bank, wanting to cross over. But there were no boats, and he seemed worried. A monk was passing by, who asked the man if he, the monk, could be of any help to him, the man. Learning about the man's problem, the monk took out a chit of paper from his bag, and giving it to the man said, "This chit of paper has a powerful mantra that will enable you to walk on water. Keep it with you, don't read the mantra, and throw it in the river once you reach the other side." The man took the paper, and started walking on the water. As he walked on the water, he thought that the mantra was really very powerful, and he should read so that he can make a lot of money by showing miracle to people. He ignored the monk's instructions of not reading the mantra. He couldn't even wait for reaching the other side of the river. He opened a folded sheet of paper to read the mantra. When he looked at it, to his great surprise, the sheet of paper was completely blank on both sides. The very next moment the man drowned and died. Mantras are that powerful. You don't even need a mantra to make impossible possible. You just need faith. In the above story, as long as the man had faith that the sheet of paper has a powerful mantra, he could walk on the water. When he saw that there was no mantra on the paper, the faith vanished along with the mantra, and he drowned. Self-realization. Self-realization is the process of knowing our true nature, and living the true self in thoughts, words, and deeds. Self-realization is a process, and not an event. It is also called God realization. Self-realization is a process, and not an event. Is self-realization difficult? Self-realization seems to be a difficult process because it's a catch-22 process. The self has to be set free from the BMI using the BMI itself. Theoretical wisdom has to be acquired, for which mind has to work. Practical knowledge has to be experienced, for which intellect or ego has to be fully controlled. And to control mind and ego, meditation would be needed, for which body has to play a role. In the entire process, body, mind, and intellect will have to cooperate and balance greatly. Self is creator and BMI is the creation. But like a spider gets caught in its own web, the self gets caged in its own BMI. And when that happens, the BMI has to work hard to set the self free. This process can be compared to NASA sending space shuttles. Assume the space shuttle is the self and everything else within Earth's gravitational pull is the BMI. A tremendous force has to be applied to throw the space shuttle out of Earth's gravity and send it to the space. To push anything out of Earth's gravity, force from the Earth itself has to be used. Similarly, to set the self free from BMI, the BMI has to utilize all its power. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the BMI frees the self, and then pulls back the self into the BMI, exactly same as a space shuttle is pushed out of Earth's gravity, and pulled back into the gravity. People easily understand science but find it difficult to understand spirituality. But science is the biggest clue in understanding the secrets of spirituality. Though spirituality always claimed that matter and energy are same things, Shiva is Shakti, and Shakti is Shiva, most people didn't buy that until Einstein proved it with the theory of relativity, E equals mc2. Nothing mentioned above is claimed to be the only truth. The complete study of spirituality is nothing but millions of beliefs, and whatever is mentioned above is one of those beliefs. Experience it if you will. Immanuel Kant defined enlightenment as enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-imposed immaturity. Immaturity is the inability to use one's understanding without guidance from another. This immaturity is self-imposed when its cause lies not in lack of understanding, but in lack of resolve and courage to use it without guidance from another. Have courage to use your own understanding. That is the motto of enlightenment. The concept underlying enlightenment, self-illumination, self-realization, God realization, etc. is the same. During my last 3 decades of pursuing Vedanta philosophy, the best thing that I learned was from a series of lectures on Atmabodhabad. Self-realization is not an event but a process. Ever since then I avoid using the phrase, attain self-realization, and instead put it as experienced self-realization. Thus, according to that, a person doesn't attain, or gain, or get enlightenment, illumination, self, or God realization, but experiences enlightenment, illumination, self or God realization, etc. The underlying truth behind this concept is that body and mind are matters, hence they cannot be enlightened, and soul, which is spirit, is ever enlightened. Hence, there is nothing to be enlightened. Thus, every human being, a combination of matter and spirit, is enlightened by its very nature. Like dead man cannot be killed again, we who are already enlightened by our very human nature cannot again attain enlightenment, we can only experience it from time to time. And this process of experiencing our true divine nature, and living a spiritual life in that divinity, is called self-realization, or enlightenment.
Like dead man cannot be killed again, we who are already enlightened by our very human nature cannot again attain enlightenment, we can only experience it from time to time. And this process of experiencing our true divine nature, and living a spiritual life in that divinity, is called self-realization, or enlightenment.
It's like the chicken and egg story. If we do not live a self-realized life, then we cannot experience self-realization. And without having self-realization experiences, we cannot live a self-realized life. When Moses saw the burning bush, and heard the 10 commandments, he experienced enlightenment. However, he couldn't have seen the burning bush, and heard God's voice if he had not lived an enlightened life in the first place. Like Moses, Buddha, Jesus, Ramakrishna, et al., we are all enlightened, we just need to put spiritual efforts to experience it from time to time. We cannot acquire enlightenment because we are already enlightened since the very beginning of our existence. Similarly, we cannot acquire any Shakti, spiritual power, since we already have it all. To understand that truth, let's read the following mantra from Yajur Veda. Om Purnamada Purnamadam Purnate Purnamudachyayat Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamvavashishyayat. Meaning that God is whole, this I is also whole. From that whole God, this whole I has come out. But even though this whole I has come out of that whole God, that whole God remains whole. This is beautifully explained with an illustration of candles. Take a burning candle. That candle represents God. Take an unlit candle. This candle represents I. Now light the I candle with the God candle. Look at the flames of both the candles, and they will look absolutely the same. The whole flame is passed on from God candle to the I candle, and yet God candle retains the whole flame. Now both candles have whole flames. If we examine the properties of the flames of the two candles, then we will find that there is not an iota of property less in the I candle than that in the God candle. This flame represents Shakti. When we, the I, come into existence, at that very moment we attain the whole Shakti that God has. And hence, between human beings there is nothing called as transmitting Shakti, power. Leave alone the greatest of gurus, even God cannot transmit any further Shakti to any human being, since he has already transmitting the whole Shakti at the time of creation, and there is no such Shakti left that the human being already doesn't possess. Purna is the Sanskrit word for whole, full, complete, etc. We all human beings are Purna, full. Like there is no meaning in pouring any more water into a container that is full up to its rim, there is no meaning in trying to transmit any further Shakti into a person who is already full of Shakti right from the beginning of his or her existence. Then the question arises, if we are enlightened and full with Shakti right since the beginning of our existence, then what further do we have to learn, or what's the role of a guru? The shortest answer to that is, ignorance. Most people are not aware of their enlightenment and Kundalini Shakti. And a very small population that is aware of it does not know how to use it. There comes the dire need of spiritual guidance of apt gurus. Having this Shakti, and not knowing how to use it is like having a grand piano at home, and not knowing how to play it. As we need a piano teacher to teach us piano, we need a guru to teach us to use our Shakti. To summarize, there is never a time in human life when he acquires any Shakti because the whole Shakti is in him right since he came into existence. When Jesus realized this truth of wholeness of Shakti, he said, "I and my Father in heaven are one." When Sri Ramakrishna realized that he possesses all the Shakti like the God he always worshipped has, he said, "I and my mother, Kali, are one." Like such avatars, each one of us is Purna, the whole. Understanding this wholeness, fullness, completeness, or Purnatva of our being is all about understanding self-realization. I am whole as he. I am he. There is nothing very surprising if anybody asks us to prove our enlightenment. Since time immemorial, people have demanded such proofs from spiritually uplifted souls. Even great ones like Moses and Christ couldn't escape that demand. But the truth is that there is no proof. Water of Ganges River is called sacred. Can anybody prove that? By sprinkling Ganges water on a dead person, can we bring it back to life? A person who can do that can do it with water from any other river too. So, why call only Ganges sacred? But still Hindu people believe that Ganges River is most sacred. Spirituality is all about belief and not proof. Life cannot sustain without water, and hence all waters are sacred, be it from any river or ocean. Similarly, every person is enlightened, and hence there is nothing to prove any particular person's enlightenment. Somebody said, "We are all God," but when we are not realized, we are not considered as God. Who would judge whether we are realized or not? Who has to consider us as God or otherwise? Nobody. In a way, we are all individuals and we are what we are. Half the world doesn't believe Mother Mary to be a virgin mother. Billions do not believe that Lord Krishna existed in body, and actually walked the earth. So, how does it matter if people do not believe somebody to be a realized soul or God? Everything boils down to an individual's believing oneself to be a realized soul or God by his conduct of living on this plane and his relationship with others. It doesn't matter even if nobody else believes in the self-realization of that person. Enlightenment and non-duality. One of my most favorite books is Vasistha's Yoga, also called Yoga Vasistha. Here is what it says on enlightenment. One who is enlightened, awakened, realizes this, not the unenlightened. It is because of the false feeling, I am not enlightened, that this ignorance of the reality has come to be firmly established. He who abandons the realization of the direct experience of the Lord, who is of the nature of indivisible, infinite consciousness, and clings to other forms of experience, is surely foolish. What have we to do with such people? In reality, every person is enlightened. But still we tend to call those people unenlightened who have this false feeling, I am not enlightened. We should just ignore people who are not ready to understand this simple teaching of Vedanta. Everyone is enlightened, whether he or she follows duality, qualified non-duality, or non-duality. Qualified non-duality and duality are subsets of non-duality. Like tasting one drop of ocean is same as tasting the entire ocean, even following qualified non-dualism, or dualism is same as following non-dualism. one of Sri Ramakrishna's gurus, Totapuri was dead against image worship, dualism, and often reprimanded Sri Ramakrishna for the latter always worshipped Kali. But, finally one day, unable to tolerate his stomach pain, Totapuri decided to drown his body in river Ganges. As he kept entering the river, the water started becoming shallow and shallow. He had never seen such a miracle before. And what power of the ultimate is doing this miracle, he wondered, and then he found the ultimate standing in front of him in the form of Mother Kali. The beauty of Vedanta is such that you cannot love anything to such an extent that it would generate hatred for something else in your heart. Too much of non-dualism in our lives can create hatred for dualism, and any such hatred is a digression on the path of spirituality. Summary: I am enlightened or awakened or liberated, and I don't need to have any doubts about it. My enlightenment is not conditional on my following dualism or non-dualism. If anybody calls me unenlightened, then it shouldn't matter to me, same as it doesn't matter to gold if anybody calls it iron. I am not what others believe I am. I am not even what I believe I am. I am what I am. Spirituality is all about having good feeling about ourselves and love for others. That requires overcoming our ignorance by wisdom. All the rest is nothing but terminologies: enlightenment, nirvana, jivanmukta, bodhisattva, realization, etc. At some point on one's spiritual journey, the aspirant realizes that these terminologies are mere words and nothing more. To say, I am not enlightened is ignorance, and to say, I am enlightened is ego. We just don't need to talk of our enlightenment. No amount of talks, discussions, or debates can alter the fact who we are. We are who we are.
To say, I am not enlightened, is ignorance, and to say, I am enlightened, is ego.
Most people have high regards for religions and philosophies of both Eastern and Western worlds. However, when it comes to a particular topic, on which the East and the West have completely different views, then we have to choose the one that is convincing to us. The concept of heaven and hell, sin, enlightenment, etc. is 180-degree opposite in the two philosophies. But I never felt the need of finding out which philosophy is right, because both could be right. However, one person can follow only one philosophy in such contradicting situation. But then there are 1,000 other topics about which the Eastern and Western philosophies are on the same page. Vedas are the source of Eastern philosophy. We have no idea since when these Vedas were spoken, but they were first time put in writing at least 5,000 years back, which is before the coming of Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, et al. Hence, obviously there couldn't have been any mention of these avatars in the Vedas. Coming to enlightenment, even if we utter the word enlightenment, the first picture that comes to our mind is that of Buddha. But Vedas explained enlightenment millenniums before Buddha, and it said that everyone is enlightened. This fact was not totally ignored by the Buddhist followers and preachers either. Here's the definition of enlightenment by Huineng, 7th century Japanese Zen. Huineng said in his The Sutra of Huineng, "The wisdom of enlightenment is inherent in every one of us. It is because of the delusion under which our mind works that we fail to realize it ourselves, and that we have to seek the advice and the guidance of enlightened ones before we can know our own essence of mind. You should know that so far as Buddha nature is concerned, there is no difference in an enlightened person and an ignorant one. What makes the difference is one realizes it, while the other is ignorant of it."
You should note that so far as Buddha nature is concerned, there is no difference in an enlightened person and an ignorant one. What makes the difference is one realizes it, while the other is ignorant of it.
Story of Dharmavyadha in the Vana Parva of the Mahabharata, narrated narrated by sage Markandeya to Yudhishthir during the Pandavas' Vanavasa, exile into forest. The story is of a Brahmana ascetic, Kausika, receiving spiritual lessons, first from a housewife, and then from a meat seller. The story emphasizes the spiritual value of serving one's aged parents and the greatness of householders.